Good evening, and welcome to The Future's Now. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. My special guest this evening is State Senator Harold Jones. Senator Jones, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Senator Jones, tell us a little about yourself before we get started here.
Yes, State Senator Harold Jones for District 22. I'm from Augusta. Went to Glen Hills High School, then went to South Carolina State, North Carolina Central for law school. I was the first African-American Solicitor General elected back in 2004. And then I ran for State Senate in 2014. And with your help, I was able to get elected to that position. So we're finishing up our first term now.
Okay, great. But also in being in the House at this particular time, or being in the Senate at this particular time, you're in the minority party regardless whether the House or the Senate. Right. Tell me, how's that working for you?
So far, it's gone pretty well. I mean, it's not like what you see on television and persons are fighting all the time. You have to just kind of find a way to kind of get involved in things. And one of the areas I've been able to do that is through non-civil judiciary and judicial committee. Those are two committees I'm on. I'm also on public safety, and I'm also on economic development. So three of those areas are right around my alley, being in the legal field. So I'm able to provide insight there. And then with economic development, that's always a good area to be on, especially how I can help Augusta. So I've been able to make good relationships there. And so even though I'm part of a minority party, the key thing is to make good relationships. And I think we've done a pretty good job doing that.
But also, when you talk about introducing legislation, what do you hope that legislation to look like to get buy-in from the majority party?
Well, I think one of the things is you have to make sure that it fits what the governor is trying to do on some level. You know, the governor has been talking about criminal justice reform. And so part of that is why I introduced my marijuana bill to transfer marijuana. We have no more felony possession of marijuana. I think it fits to what the governor is trying to do as far as criminal justice reform. So that's one area. Also along the same lines, when we start talking about cyber, that is something, economic development. So I presented a cyber bill to talk about having a cyber challenge. That fits right into economic development and the state's goal to become a preeminent leader on cyber. So that's kind of like how you have to do it, is find out what people are working on that kind of fits what you can do for your community.
So have you been able to get co-sponsors from the other side in terms of being supportive of some of the legislation that you're challenging?
Especially on that cyber bill, we had a lot of Republican co-sponsors. On the marijuana bill, they were a little bit more hesitant, but we got a lot of co-sponsors from our Democratic Party. But the key thing about the marijuana bill is it looks like we're going to get a hearing. A lot of persons don't realize that there's literally thousands of bills that are dropped every year. There's only a handful that get a hearing. And right now, it looks like we'll probably be at least get a hearing on that marijuana bill.
Okay, we're going to get a little bit more on that marijuana bill in just a couple of minutes here. But once again, go through those committees that you say you sit on, exactly what relevance they have in terms of your skill set, but also how they impact Augusta.
Yes.
Potentially, anyway.
One of them is called the Judicial Committee, Civil Judiciary Committee. And that's the persons that actually, we look at things like divorce laws, we look at election laws, things of that nature, more on the civil side. The other one is what they call non-civil judiciary, which is criminal. So basically, a layperson would call it criminal judiciary. And of course, we look at all the criminal laws. And then the other one is economic development. So we look at economic development and tourism for the entire state. And then finally, we have what's called public safety, also kind of looking at criminal law, but it also may be things such as your speeding tickets and fines of that nature, dealing with public safety. It can also be just how big your rigs can go on the roadways. You know, there's actually a weight limit on how much you can carry on your rigs, on your trucks. That goes through public safety. So it's a gamut of all sorts of things that happen.
Okay, now let's get to the good marijuana bill there. You've right a month ago now, you had a press conference in Atlanta around that bill. Talk to us about exactly what that piece of legislation looked like.
Right, exactly. In Georgia, what we do is we divide marijuana up in two ways. Number one, if it's up to an ounce, it's a misdemeanor. If it's over that, it's a felony. And what we're talking about is possession only, not selling. Selling marijuana is a felony. This bill would not address that. It will remain a felony. What this bill says, if you are in possession of marijuana only possession, it would be a misdemeanor. It'd be a misdemeanor only. And the reason why I looked at it is because a felony, even if you're not going to jail, a felony can cost you so many things. Right to serve on a jury, your right to vote, your right to receive the Hope Scholarship, right to receive some forms of federal aid. All of that can be lost if you receive a felony conviction. So because the conviction carries so many drastic consequences, what we were saying is if you only have possession of marijuana, that the consequences should be more so just at a misdemeanor level and not the felony level.
It's one thing to talk about a piece of legislation that you made a public announcement around that bill, and you probably introduced it on some level. You're going to have a hearing on that you just mentioned much earlier. How have your colleagues on both sides of the aisle now, have they kind of just begin to steer away from you as a result of every legislation, or they begin to embrace and have a hard conversation around a piece of legislation?
On the Democratic side, person said it was a very important piece of legislation. And then on the Republican side, I've had persons who gave me stories about students that they know in their district that may have lost scholarships. And so they've also said that it was a very interesting bill and it was something they were interested in looking at. So really on both sides, it's been embraced on some level.
So, I mean, but wouldn't it fit right in with the governor's to talk about this criminal justice reform?
Right.
Wouldn't it fit in that piece of legislation as well? So, do you think at the end of the day, if you will agree that it fits in there, that possibly if a Republican was running with that bill, it would get some traction?
Yeah, I think if we can get some cosigns on the Republican side, what would most likely happen is this year, it was the second year of the session, the second year of the term. So it'll probably be set down for a hearing, and then we'll see if it actually get out of committee. But whenever you do major legislation, your final year of the term, it's going to be difficult to actually pass it. So next year we'll go ahead and refile it, and then because we'll have the hearing, we'll hear the stories, we'll hear how important it is. From there, we'll get Republican sponsors or co-sponsors on it and see, I think we can get it passed.
So right now, as we speak, you're comfortable where it is at this particular time?
Where it is right now, I'm comfortable where it is right now.
Okay. Well, Senator Jones, as you know, we got to pay the bills, and we'll be right back. We're going to take a commercial break.
Okay.
Welcome back. Once again, you're watching The Futures Now. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. My guest, once again, and my special guest is State Senator Harold Jones. Senator Jones, also, there's big talk around the state about bringing casinos to the state of Georgia. You also sit on that committee. Tell us a little about that, and how do you get a position? How did you get your position on that committee?
Well, how I got the position was I received an email and just said that you're assigned to the Casino Gambling Committee, which is basically the Preservation of Hope Scholarship Committee. And because what we did, we assigned standing committees at the end of the term, end of last year. And so I hadn't been assigned a standing committee yet, or I haven't been assigned a study committee yet, actually. And then we got an email, and it's probably one of the most important study committees we have going on in the state, because it's the Save Hope Scholarship. So it's a very important committee, and so we've met about 3 or 4 times in Atlanta, and also we met once in Savannah to talk about the prospects of legalizing casino gambling.
So from where you sit right now, if you had to say, well, gambling coming to the state of Georgia, what would you say?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It has good support. See, it's actually 2 bills that are out there. One is a pari-mutuel bill, which is horse racing,
okay,
and then the other is casino gambling. And so one of the questions is, should the 2 be put together? They both would have to go to the voters. But should the 2 go together to the voters? Should they be separated? So that in itself is kind of like an internal fight that's going on in the House and in the Senate, is how to structure that. And then, of course, you have persons for religious reasons that are against gambling. So even though it had a lot of good momentum, now that we've kind of gotten to the session, we're kind of seeing it slow up just a little bit. So we'll see where it goes.
The pari-mutuel betting has been around for quite some time. How did it all of a sudden get traction once the casinos came in? Had some, would you use the word piggyback on that to get the conversation going around it as well?
Actually, pari-mutuel betting was first.
Okay.
Pari-mutuel betting has been going on a little bit. That bill has been circulating a little bit before casino gambling. So
that's my point. But all of a sudden, but it couldn't get any traction. But all of a sudden, it become a player in this conversation. So that was my question. How did that happen?
Well, you have a lot of persons who are on pari-mutuel betting who are saying, well, we're also in favor of casino, so can we kind of like have traction together?
Okay.
And so that's kind of like where you are on that. I think it's a potentially good idea that could help Save Hope Scholarship because it's necessary. One of the things that we have going on is we have a population that is increasing, which puts more demands on Hope, and not only on Hope from a scholarship level, but also on pre-K. So it's not as though it's about to run out of money today, but we're starting to see it kind of get constraints as far as pre-K is concerned and as far as Hope Scholarship. So that's why we need something to kind of put some more into the coffers.
Have you made a decision as of yet? Will you think both of them need to be considered, or one or the other?
I don't have a problem with either one being considered by the voters.
Okay.
That's the key thing. Both of them have to go to the voters.
Okay.
I think there's a question of whether pari-mutuel betting is as strong as necessarily casino gambling, but that's something that will have to be talked to the voters about. I think they both have good potential, but they both have some obstacles too as far as making money is concerned.
So where are we now in terms of exactly what's going to happen? And if it was to come based on what's before you right now in terms of in terms of the casinos, what would the casinos look like, and how many would we potentially have in the state of Georgia?
What the casinos would look like is we are basically going to divide the state up into zones, and there will be 5 zones. Atlanta zone, which Augusta is in, would be eligible to receive 2 gaming licenses. And then the other zones, such as Savannah, Macon, they're in the zone by themselves. Columbus in the zone by themselves, they'll be eligible to receive 1 gaming license. And even within that, it's a little bit different. You have what's called primary license and secondary license. A primary license is your mega type of casino that you would think about in Vegas. A secondary license may also be sort of Vegas, but it's not one of the more well-known ones. It's not going to necessarily have a major hotel and major acts that come to it. So what Augusta would probably be in line for is potentially a secondary license, and that still is a good license. Atlanta will probably be the one who gets the mega events and things of that nature, and that's to be expected. So Augusta's in that particular zone. So the way it will work is the state goes to vote first, and they vote yes or no. Then if the state says, yes, we want to legalize casino gambling, then your local jurisdiction then has to go vote and say, do they want the opportunity to even bid on the potential of having casino gambling in your jurisdiction?
And that's going to be my final question before I allow you to wrap it up. And that is simply, in talking to your constituents thus far, are them reaching out to you, what has been the response in terms of the casino gambling?
The response has been very good. I mean, I've not really had any negative responses as far as casino gambling is concerned. So I think as far as Augusta is concerned, right now, if a vote was taken, it probably would pass.
Okay, great. It's always a pleasure to sit and talk with you, Senator Harold Jones. So give us some parting shots.
I think the major parting shot is please keep your eyes on that marijuana bill, Senate Bill 254. It is a major piece of legislation that can really help our community, help everyone's community from these draconian penalties of having felonies.
Okay, great. It was always a pleasure. We look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. You have been watching The Futures Now. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. Look forward to seeing you right here next week. Have a great day.